Nowadays, there really aren't very many new convertibles on the market for sale, but about 20 years ago, they were everywhere. Just about every auto manufacturer offered one. In fact, in the year 2000, Toyota offered two. They offered the Toyota MR2, which was only a convertible at that time, and this guy, the Toyota Camry Solara convertible. And I really don't understand that, because it's really nice to be able to take your top off and drive around and have that sun right on your face. But let's get into what makes this one interesting and why I think they should bring it back. So in 1999, when the Camry Solara came out, it was a two-door version of that super popular Toyota Camry sedan. And then in 2000, they came out with this guy, the Camry Solara Convertible. And this was sold up until 2003, until it was replaced by another Camry Solara, which was then sold through 2008. And believe it or not, this was the last convertible that Toyota has sold back in 2008. And since then, we just haven't had one. So when it came time to make this guy, the convertible top was surprisingly actually not made by Toyota. So what they would do is they would partially finish the coupe, send it off to ASC, where they would cut that roof off, install this top, and then they would send it back to Toyota, where Toyota would paint it and then have it go through all of its quality checks. So there were a few different engine options that came in the Camry Solara, and the entry level was a 2.2 liter four-cylinder with 136 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque. However, in 2002, they replaced that engine with a 2.4 liter four-cylinder that gave about an extra 20 horsepower. But this guy has a 3 liter V6, and this 3 liter V6 pumps out about 200 horsepower and 214 pound-feet of torque, all through its 4-speed automatic to the front wheels. But oddly enough, you could actually get this with a 5-speed manual. Now I'm curious, this car is the sporty version with the 200 horsepower. How does it accelerate up here at a mile above sea level? Well, I wouldn't say brisk. I wouldn't say that it's any sort of exhilarating or exciting in any way. It's adequate. You know, it's enough to keep you up with traffic, to not be dangerous out on the roads. Boy, if you got this in the 4-cylinder version, it probably feels downright slow, because this V6 is it's not fast by any means, so keep that in mind. Now, climbing into the interior of this, you will recognize that it pretty much looks just like a Toyota Camry, and it's a fairly comfortable, fairly nice place to sit. And I mean, they weren't doing anything revolutionary. You've got your standard Toyota radio with your HVAC controls below here. You do have a little slide out storage that, I don't know, could fit some papers if you really wanted it to. Of course, an ashtray. And then I do kind of like the cup holders, how you have two separate covers that cover both of your cup holders. But I will say these seats are actually really darn comfortable. And as such, this actually sold to kind of an older audience than they originally intended it to, because this is kind of a really comfortable cruiser to drive around. Now, maybe if you got the 5-speed manual with this as opposed to the 4-speed automatic, it would at least feel a little bit faster and be a little more engaging to drive, being able to, you know, clutch it and shift it into your own gears. But this one, being the convertible version with the automatic, is probably the least enthusiast version of the Camry Solara convertible. Now, when Toyota was originally styling the Solara, they really did intend it to be a more sporty-oriented version of the Camry. And so that's why it got this little bit more swoopy styling, and I really kind of like this back end. Although, what I think is really interesting is, I think pretty much the entire trunk overhangs behind the rear wheels, which makes it kind of a unique look. Now, when you open up the trunk, you will see that it is actually pretty darn usable. Usually when you have a convertible top, it robs you of a ton of trunk space and it makes this area completely useless, but it's just being housed right in this top part that you really don't use that much anyways, still leaves you a lot of room for storage. Now, when it comes to opening the top, it is about as simple as it gets. You just have this latch on both sides that you need to open up, and then you have a button down here where you just push open. It will drop the windows for you, both front and rear, and then it'll drop the entire top. So it's about as simple as an operation as you could possibly find, at least as far as the late 90s goes. Now, I'm going over some little potholes here in the dirt area, and I will say this is probably one of the wallowiest cars I've ever driven, and that is because when they came out with this, they did 0 upgrades to the suspension. They did beef up the rocker panels a bit, you know, I mean, and in turn, I mean, they beefed them up quite a bit, almost doubling their strength, but that ended up adding about 200 pounds to this, and then the suspension still has all of this girth to deal with, and it just kind of ends up making the car kind of wallowy and floaty all around. So much so, in fact, I would say that the driving characteristics of this, probably closest to it, would be like a Toyota Avalon. And if you remember the Toyota Avalon, it was really popular with the older folks because it's a very quiet, soft, and subdued ride that is, you know, doesn't take much energy to go to the store. It's easy to get in and out of. And I would say that this really is kind of like an early Toyota Avalon. It is super comfortable, super like squishy ride. It's easy to get in and out of. And so I think if you're someone out there that's maybe got hip problems, had your knees replaced, you know, or just generally like a nice, soft, cushy ride, but want to be able to take the top down, this is probably the ride for you. Now this particular Solara is actually Andre's, and I think he's thinking about giving it to his daughter to drive around, and this is about one of the cleanest examples I have seen, with only showing about 50,000 miles on the odometer. But if you're out there looking for one, values are all over the board. I mean, you can find these for under $1,000 in really rough shape, and you could just as easily find one for $6,000, $7,000 in really minty, nice shape. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments section below. Is the Camry Solara an interesting piece of history, or is this just another used, reliable Toyota out on the road today? Either way, thank you so much for watching. This has been Brendan, Case Behind the Camera. Take care, guys.